Hello, regular Drews. Just a quick announcement today to remind you that Her Interactive's Fan Month celebration is still going on right now, which means that you have until the end of the month to shop all of their games for 20% off, and you have until the end of the day on the day that this episode airs, which is Friday the 25th, to enter their Nancy Drew Legacy contest and show off your Nancy Drew collection. Also, they're currently running a flash sale on their most recent game, Mystery of the Seven Keys, this weekend. This is the biggest discount they've ever done on Mystery of the Seven Keys, so be sure to head over to herinteractive.com to shop the sale and to enter the contest. Finally, we're so excited to say that we've partnered with Her Interactive again to give away a bundle of their top 5 fan favorite games, so head over to our Instagram at regularnancydrew to enter.
Well, aren't you a regular Nancy Drew?
I learned that from the Nancy Drew detective.
Okay, go.
You think you can follow the clues and solve the case of the missing condiment, Nancy Drew?
Because I've read every Nancy Drew mystery ever written.
Nancy, please tell me you're joking.
Wow, you suck at this Nancy Drew stuff. You should get a new hobby.
My name is Carson Drew, and this is my assistant, Nancy.
Nancy Drew.
It's curtains for you, Miss Drew.
Nancy Drew strikes again.
A regular Nancy Drew.
Hello, regular Drews.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome back to another episode. This one, 109. We have another Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys Super Mystery to cover. This one is The Paris Connection. Okay, I do need to put a disclaimer right at the top because I already feel it, regular Drews. I have brain fog today, like next level. I hope this podcast turns out okay because I feel like a space cadet.
It's okay.
So, yeah. So
I'm not at 100% either of my allergies, but you sound totally fine to me. But
Thank you. But so I guess thoughts and prayers for this podcast episode.
if we need to take breaks, we can take as many breaks as we need to.
Yeah. Great plan.
No
Kori.
worries. Yeah.
But yeah, no, we're back with another super mystery. Kori, how did you feel about this one?
I liked it.
That pause encapsulates everything I feel about it. Yeah, I liked it.
I will say this is supposed to be kind of a official, unofficial sequel to A Crime for Christmas, which is what we covered very recently for episode 100. And I think maybe I got my expectations up a little bit because I like that one so much. Not that I dislike this at all, just that I maybe expected it to be a little bit better just because the first one was so good. I did like the setting a lot, though. I felt like they did a good job of like describing Paris and the landmarks, but not in a way that it was so much that it took away from the mystery or anything like that. So I did really enjoy that aspect of it. What did you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, my favorite part about the book was the setting. I think they managed to make us fall in love with Paris just as much as kind of the characters did without it feeling like, okay, like, what was it, 99 Steps?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Is that what that
It was, yeah.
Okay,
By the Loire Valley, yeah.
Yes. Where it's just like, okay, we go to the Louvre and then we go over here and then we go to the, it just felt like tourism. This didn't feel like that. But we did get some of those moments in there, which is really nice. But yeah, I was disappointed a little bit with the story. And I think I just didn't like where they went with it. Like if I had been writing a sequel to A Crime for Christmas, I would have done it a little bit differently. I think I don't want to give too many spoilers away off the top before we get into the details of everything and let you guys experience the stories that unfold. But I just didn't like the vibes. I wanted more art museums and like spy versus spy vibes than like rock concert backstage vibes. Which is really what this book is. It's really more about Nancy's mystery than it is about Frank and Joe's mystery, which is interesting because I do feel like in A Crime for Christmas, I think I had the opposite complaint. I was like, this is more Frank and Joe's mystery than Nancy's mystery, and the vibes aren't right. And then this time I'm like, this is more Nancy's mystery than Frank and Joe's mystery, and the vibes aren't right.
Yeah, I was a little frustrated with Frank and Joe because I felt like some of the things, it was like so obvious what was happening and they just weren't picking up on it. And
well, that's the other thing too, is I felt like there were no real twists in the story. Like the way that it was presented to us as like who the likely culprits are and what actually was going on was the truth, like was who the culprits were and what was actually going on. And even though it was, I guess, kind of a surprise to Frank and Joe, or Joe and maybe Nancy, it also, they were thinking about that a little bit as being a possibility. And so us as the reader, it was like, okay, well, like we knew that. Like weren't we all on the same page about this from the beginning? Literally, Nancy brought it up like right at the beginning that could be what is happening. And then I guess you kind of just ignore that. And then, at the end, we're like shocked at the reveal. Like, come on. It felt a little cheap, you know?
Definitely.
Whereas if we had just known that, sorry, I'm being really vague talking around one major plot point that is the spoiler of the end of it. But if we had known that from the beginning, and it could have been so much more interesting as like them trying to catch that person. And I don't know. Here's the thing. I need Joe Hardy to be in love with a cat burglar.
Yes.
I just need that. Because the thing about it is because it's complicated, right?
Yeah.
Like, because Joe is a crime fighter, and if he fell in love with a criminal, how interesting, how cool, how fun, because he simultaneously wants to catch them and then also simultaneously like doesn't,
right?
You know? And then he could be fighting with Frank about it and being like, yes, I know we have to do that. And then he can like have secret rendezvous with this person. And like, anyway, I really wanted that. And we did not get that at all in this book. And so I was disappointed. We didn't even get to go to one art museum. I mean, I guess they went to the Louvre, but like for all of 5 minutes, and we didn't even really go in.
No.
Like, we needed to be in an art museum when a heist was happening.
Right.
Like, that's what literally the start of the book is like, there are these art heists in Paris. And I'm like, oh my God, yes.
Perfect. Yes.
Great. We don't get a single scene where we're thwarting an art heist in an art museum.
No, it's all backstage at the concert.
We're backstage at a rock concert because Nancy's there on some rock tour helping some rock star with sabotage, like surprise, surprise. So yeah, I was a little disappointed in that. But ultimately, I do think the book is a good time. Like, it was a fun read, and it's a super mystery, so we get our Nancy and Frank fix a little bit. But it just the vibes weren't quite it. Yeah. You know? Yeah.
I know that this is a big trope of the Files series, and I know that this was technically published in 1990, but I do feel like the 1980s were kind of an unspoken character in this story, just with the whole like big hair rock concert vibes, you know?
Yeah. It felt a little bit like they were holding on to that with like their claws, you know what I mean? Like, you can take the 80s music from my cold dead hands.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did try to look and see if there was any record of an author for this. I could not find it. And I was hoping that it would be the same author, Peter Larringus from A Crime for Christmas, but I could not find it, which makes me think that maybe it was not him.
Yeah.
So I think it may be a different author, and that's why maybe some things were so different, that they tried to reel back some of that Francie stuff and then Joe falling for Fiona stuff. That was so juicy in A Crime for Christmas, and it was like dust in this one.
Yes.
Nothing.
Yeah. You were probably so right, Kori. I bet that's totally it. And I can even I can feel that, and I don't want to be rude to whoever the ghostwriter is, because really I did enjoy this story, and I do think it was a good book, but it just wasn't as good as A Crime for Christmas.
Yeah. And
I think Peter Larringus, he's an award-winning children's author. He knew what he was doing. Yeah. You know what I mean? And whereas this is it's just missing it just a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, watch it actually be Peter Larringus, and he's like, well, I guess that one was a flop.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like there was so much walking back of what was put into A Crime for Christmas that it just doesn't feel like it could be the same author for me.
Yeah.
If it is, sorry, Peter, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
That's okay. Yeah. Well.
3
do
words?
we want to talk about the cover art?
Oh, yes, definitely.
This is a James Mathus cover. I don't know if there are multiple covers for this. I don't think so.
I have the same one, so probably not.
Which features Nancy in an LBD little black dress on the cover. I have to say, her haircut in this is slamming. I don't know who was responsible for this hair choice, but it is peak good. It's like this shag where Nancy's like bangs like fade directly into her cut. So classic. And then in the background, she's kind of looking over her shoulder at both Frank and Joe. This is the scene in the book where Frank almost gets run over by a motorcycle. And so he's kind of like falling backwards as Joe is catching him. Their outfits are also really funny. Joe is wearing a very 80s, or I guess early 90s, like oversized blazer. And I can just see the shoulder pads from here.
Yes.
And Frank is wearing a pink shirt with like white pants and white, I guess, loafers. I don't know what those are, with white socks.
1980s.
Incredibly 80s. But then in the background, we see the Eiffel Tower, kind of the view of Paris. So it's really nice. I think it's really appropriate and works really well. And I do love that it is an actual scene in the book that actually happens. And we get all of our stars on it, all of our main characters, all right there. So I think it's great. I think my only critique of this, and this is not a cover design critique as it is so much book design as a whole critique, is I don't think the colors of the text and the coloring of like the back of the book is correct. It just doesn't quite fit.
Yeah.
And I know with the Super Mysteries, we want it to be really poppy and everything. And I think the yellow is fine, but I think the orange, or like the reddish orange that they have on there, I think that is not the right color choice. I think we should have done like a purple or something like that. And then the blue color that they have on the back of the book, which is like a sky robin's egg kind of a blue, doesn't look great, I think, with the cover art, because I think what we're wanting to go for is kind of like a little bit of like a moody Paris kind of vibes, and it just looks a little bit, I don't know, it looks too poppy.
It doesn't fit the vibes. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, that's not the cover. It's great, I think.
My only real complaint about it is that in the book we do specify that she has reddish hair, but she's blonde on the cover. Or at least maybe the colors are just off on mine, but she looks more blonde.
No, she's definitely blonde.
Yeah.
She's definitely blonde. I didn't pick up that they had labeled her as a redhead in this one. So
it was very brief. I think they only said it one time, but I was like, hold on, that's not what's on the cover. She's blonde on this cover. Let's be consistent. No, I'm kidding. But
no, I mean, that I think it's confusing, right? Because if like you were a reader who hadn't read any Nancy Drews previous to this, you picked it up, you say, oh, okay, she's got reddish hair, but then you look on the cover, you're like, well, then who's that on the cover?
Right. Is that even Nancy?
Is that Nancy? Who's that supposed to be? So there's a level of confusion, I think, that can happen with that. So.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Oh, well. Okay, yes, 3 words.
Rock concert, rock stars, I feel like has to be one of them. Music, some way.
I want to put something really random in there, and I want it to either be funicular.
Oh, yes. Perfect.
Or chlorine gas balloon.
Oh my
which
gosh.
I know is 3 words in and of itself.
It's one item. One noun.
Right. Yeah. So, I think I'm more partial to chlorine gas balloon because it's so funny. I laughed out loud when that happened. So rock concert, chlorine gas balloon, and then I also kind of want to say, and this is a little bit weird, but I want to say like the power of friendship, because that's really what this book feels like to me, but not like in a good way.
Yeah.
Like in we get these mysteries. These mysteries happen because we're friends with people. our friends help us out to solve the mysteries, even though we don't really want them to be our friends. We want them to be more than friends, or they want to be more than friends and we don't want to be more than friends. Or we have someone who we were more than friends with, but now we're just friends. It's just, all of it is like, we get like, we're so close to romance and yet so far from it that it's like friendship, but nobody's happy about it.
Right.
Like...
Oh my gosh.
I don't think a single person comes out of this book romantically satisfied. Except maybe Bess. Maybe. But we'll have to talk about that. Because
maybe Ned, because Nancy actually remembers to call him this time. Although she does kind of hang up on him right away.
Yeah, she does.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, gotta go. Bye.
Whoops.
But, so I think rock music, chlorine gas balloon, and the power of friendship.
Perfect.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. Okay, shall we start?
One other thing I just remembered, I think, regular Drews, we might need your help in identifying a particular Alan.
Yes.
Because I cannot figure out who this guy is. Okay. Running joke on the podcast, obviously, anytime we meet an Alan, he turns out to be Bess's boyfriend and he turns out to be evil. It's great. It's a wonderful trope. But it's happened so many times now that we can't remember specifically which Alan this is supposed to be. So there's a character in this book, we'll talk about it in just a second, who has invited basically Nancy and Bess to come to Paris for this rock concert, right? And he's like, it's very clear in this book that he has appeared in a previous book. We just don't remember which one.
They mention it specifically that there is a past history from a previous, presumably Nancy Drew file. It must be a Nancy Drew file, right? Because that's the companion series to this. That's what created this. But we can't remember which one.
I did Control F on all of our summaries looking for an Alan with any spelling, and I couldn't find it. But I know that we've read a file that deals with it out. Like, this sounds so familiar to me. I can't remember who it was. So if you guys remember which Alan specifically this book is referring to, please let us know, because it's driving me crazy.
Please get in touch. Message us on Instagram. Send us an email. Send us a carrier pigeon. Whatever you got to do. Because, I did the same thing. I scoured the internet. The closest I could come to was that I thought there was a reference to an Alan in a model crime, which we've covered a model crime. But yes, again, I went back and I looked at our notes and I skimmed through a model crime to try to find reference to someone named Alan, and I couldn't.
I skimmed through every Supermystery and file that we've covered already, and I couldn't find it. So unless it's one that I just read separately from the podcast, I don't know.
I know. Okay, but I know about Allens in other series. I know there was an Alan, obviously, in the diaries. I remember cruise ship Alan.
Right.
I remember Alan, Alaska Moose Alan. I remember Alan from the 1970s TV show that we just covered. And I remember us joking about an Alan in one of the mystery stories. I don't remember which one, but again, it's a different series, so it doesn't really matter. But what was the Alan in the files?
It had to have been a file, I think. And
it had to have been.
We talk about how something to do with music in the last one, too. So that one also must have been a music-themed file, which I don't even know which one it was.
This is the thing, is I don't think it actually was. I think Alan was involved in music, but I don't think the mystery was about music.
Oh, that's right. No, because he says something at the very end about it, right? Anyway, we'll probably find it when we come to it. We'll have to talk about it.
Yeah. But it's a big mystery for us. So if you can solve it, regular Drews, that would be very helpful.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
Okay.
Now I'm ready.
No, yeah, good. Okay. So we start off, Nancy and Bess arrive in Paris. They are getting through customs at the airport when who should appear but the Hardy Boys? What a crazy random happenstance. The Hardy Boys explain to Nancy and Bess that they are just in Paris for a conference on art theft and smuggling being held at the Louvre. There's not a case that they're here for. But how exciting.
Another detective con.
A detective conference on art theft at the Louvre.
How do we get invited?
Sign me up.
Right.
Can I go? Raise my hand. I don't care the price. I want to be there. Like, that's so cool.
Sounds amazing.
I love the Louvre. The Louvre is so cool. Such a cool museum. If you ever have the opportunity to go, do it. Don't listen to the people who say, oh, you can just do a quick trip. You'll want to stay there all day.
You need 48 hours minimum. Like,
it's massive. And gosh, that it would just be so cool. I just want to be a fly on the wall of this conference so badly. Anyway. Right. But Nancy is actually in town for a case. Bess is with her. They're in town for this World Hunger Rock Tour, which has a show in Paris on Sunday. This famous rock star, whose name is Johnny Crockett, is headlining, and apparently he has been the subject of a string of quote-unquote practical jokes, which are starting to really get to him. They learned about this from an ex-boyfriend of Bess's, Alan. Alan is the bassist for Johnny, and he apparently, because he knows Nancy and Bess from a past case, thought Nancy might be able to help. So Nancy has until Sunday to figure out this practical joke business. Otherwise, she'll have to continue on with the tour to Italy. What a shame that would be.
Darn.
Nancy. So they're soon met at the airport by Alan, who helps them with their bags to the car. He also offers Frank and Jill a lift to their hotel because it turns out to be just a few blocks from Nancy and Bess's. So they're all getting into the car when Nancy sees some random guy like rifling in the outer pocket of her bag, and it's about to be like loaded into the car by the porter. So she alerts the Hardys, and Joe runs after the guy, but he gets away. Nancy checks her bag and nothing is missing, but they did leave a note in her bag. It says, oh, this is so good, you guys. Snoopers and spies get what they deserve. This is your only warning, Nancy Drew. Go home while you still can.
Oh my gosh.
Snoopers and spies. So Nancy and Bess were supposed to be here undercover, but I guess the saboteur already knows, that Nancy is here and why. So, oh well. But Nancy decides that they'll still try to be undercover even so. And so they get in the car and head to the city. Jules, who is, I guess, he's like a driver / roadie for the tour. He's the one who's driving us around. We meet him and he gives us a little bit of a tour. And it kind of seems like him and Alan might be fighting a little bit for Bess's attention, which is interesting. We have a little bit of a love triangle situation going on there. Anyway, Jules drops Nancy and Bess off at the Pont Neuf Theater, which that gave me major... Danger by design.
Yeah. I almost said on Deception Island. So see, I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. Because that's a very famous location in that game.
Yes. So I just thought that was funny. I did look this up too. So today there is a Pont Neuf Theater, like group kind of a thing that is near Pont Neuf. They call themselves Pont Neuf Theater, but I don't think this is the same one. I think that this is pre that theater existing. Mm-hmm. So I don't think this is a real place. I think they just picked a famous kind of place in Paris and decided to put a theater there. So they get dropped off at this theater to meet Johnny Crockett, the big star, which is also what a hilarious name for a rock star. Johnny Crockett. I need to talk to whoever came up with that because that is golden. And then Jules is going to take Frank and Joe to their hotel. So Nancy and Bess go to Johnny's dressing room and meet Johnny. Nancy is a little bit starstruck by him, but she hides it pretty well. She keeps her cool and her composure as she normally does. So Johnny immediately apologizes to Nancy for bringing her all the way here because he's starting to think that he was just being dramatic about the whole thing. Nancy is starting to ask him why he's kind of changed his mind about this when Jules walks in. He's back already, which I thought was crazy fast, but whatever. And he has a box for Johnny that was left at the front desk. Johnny opens it up and it's a box of roses, but then when he goes to touch them, he exclaims, "Oh, someone do something! My hand is on fire!" Turns out that the box of roses is actually a box of stinging nettles, so his hand isn't actually on fire. It's just burning from the plant. He gets some ice and Alan and Jules leave to go get him some water. And so Nancy's like, "Johnny, are you sure you were still just being dramatic about these pranks? Seems like someone is actually trying to harm you." And so she asks him if there's anyone on the tour who might wish him ill. And he mentions two people. He mentions Roger Hart, who is the lead singer of the band Volley, who is also on tour with them. He says he doesn't know why Roger would dislike him, but Roger apparently keeps telling people that Johnny is trying to keep him down and is basically like worried that Johnny is going to end up being more famous than him, whatever. Johnny's like, that's not true at all. Like, I'm not trying to like squash his like popularity or fame in any way. And like, if I was, why would I invite him on this tour? Like, that makes no sense. Because Johnny is the one who organized this tour, by the way. The other person is Ruby Bloom, who is the lead singer for Blue Roses. And there is actually a little bit of a better reason for Ruby to hate him. And that's because he and Ruby used to date. They used to be in a relationship and they had a bad breakup. But he says that they've both since moved on and are now good friends. But that does sound a little bit like fake news, in my opinion. He does also say that Roger and Ruby have been spending a lot of time together lately now that he thinks about it. So that's really interesting. But he's sure that neither of them would actually do this. Nancy is, of course, not so sure. So she takes Bess to go investigate. Meanwhile, Frank and Joe are checking into their hotel, and Joe is looking around the lobby while Frank is filling out some registration forms for them. And Joe sees a familiar redheaded girl. She sees him too, and she like rushes out the door of the hotel as fast as she can, and Joe runs after her, but he ends up getting stuck in the revolving door by an old man who like sticks his cane really or drops his cane on accident into it so that the door can't, move forward at all. So Joe keeps trying to get outside. He gets outside, but just in time to see the face of Fiona Fox in the back of the cab, driving away. Yay! He tells Frank who he's just seen, and it's of course Fiona Fox is this master thief that they know from A Crime for Christmas. And actually, now that he thinks about it, the old man with the cane who dropped it in the door was probably Fiona's father, Dr. Fox, because they work as a father-daughter cat burgling duo, and they frequently also use costumes in their heists. So. And just very funny. Once they get up to their hotel rooms, Frank points out an article that he was reading in the newspaper about a recent theft of 2 Picassos from a Paris collection. So Frank wonders if the Foxes could have been behind this because they're clearly here in town. And so Joe is like, yeah, I wonder if this trip to the conference is actually going to give us some more hands-on experience than we bargained for. Oh, don't I wish this is what the book was about? Don't I wish? And not Johnny Crockett. Anyway.
Look, hey, as we've said before, everything is now either pre-Bluebeard Room or post-Bluebeard Room. And this book, with all of its weird little love triangles, is so post-Bluebeard Room. Oh my gosh. Okay, so back at the theater, Alan is introducing Nancy and Bess to Roger. He is explaining their cover story, which is that they are going to be working public relations for the tour. And so Nancy starts asking him about the pranks, quote unquote pranks. Love it when we call these like death threats, pranks, and practical jokes. Great. At this, Roger kind of starts going off on a tangent, not about the pranks themselves, but just about the management of this tour. He says that he does not approve of the way that Johnny has been organizing these shows. He doesn't like that he's like supposed to be the opener for the show or whatever. He wants to be the main act. He thinks that he's too big for himself or whatever.
It's a big popularity contest. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and he thinks that Johnny's like intentionally doing all this stuff to hurt him or whatever. But he is also really particularly concerned about the money that they're making. Supposedly, they're only making barely enough to cover costs, which is obviously not a good thing because all of this money that they're making is supposed to be going towards hunger relief. And like all the venues that they've played so far has been like completely sold out shows. Like it seems like they should have a lot of income coming in from this, but they're barely breaking even at the end of the day. So very strange. So Nancy starts to ask for like proof of what Roger is implying here, because he's kind of implying that Johnny's the reason that they're not making money, that he's like stealing the funds or is just like not telling people where the money is actually going. But at this time, Ruby Bloom comes in. And she starts telling Roger, oh, the funniest thing just happened to Johnny, and starts talking about the stinging nettles incident. And both of them seem to be very pleased about this, or at least very amused at the very least. And Roger says says that actually he knows all about this specific type of nettle because he came to France in high school as like a student work exchange program. And he spent the whole summer cleaning them out of a ditch. So he knows how to handle them, to like handle them in a way that he won't be stung or whatever. So
how convenient.
That's very interesting. Nancy and Bess get really tired at this point, though, because, again, we just got off the airplane. We haven't even gone to the hotel yet. So they go back to the hotel to try to recover from their jet lag a little bit. But on their way out, Nancy accidentally knocks over a trash can in Roger's dressing room and sees some tissue paper, exactly like the tissue paper that Johnny's roses were wrapped in. It's in the trash here. So was Roger the one who sent these flowers?
And literally he just said, oh, I know how to handle stinging nettles. So it's like, okay.
It's pretty obvious, yeah. But they go back to the hotel, they take a little nap, and then they wake up and they decide that it's lunchtime. So Beth starts getting ready to head down to lunch, and Nancy steps out onto the balcony of their hotel room to, I guess, get some fresh air or whatever. As she notices down in the street, Jules is just standing on the sidewalk out there. And he seems to be talking to a man that kind of looks like the same guy from the airport, the one who was rifling through Nancy's bag. So why do they know each other? Why would they be talking to each other? Why is this guy like following them? And the other guy seems like he is trying to convince Jules of something. And after their discussion, the other guy just hands him a large manila envelope. At this moment, Bess comes out and sees Jules down in the street and starts waving to him and calling out to him. So at this moment, the other guy just like runs off. And so Nancy takes this to mean that they didn't want whatever this was. They didn't want anybody seeing this. Jules calls up, though, when he sees them, and he says, oh, Johnny sent me to take you guys out to lunch, and then we'll go sightseeing afterwards. And Nancy doesn't really want to do this. She wants to like go investigate right away, but she agrees to go. This should have been one of our words, honestly, this cafe that they keep going to, because we're here like 3 times a day, literally.
Or no, well, it's not this cafe, but yes, there is a specific cafe that they make their
regular spot.
Day. Yeah. Yes.
So they go to this little cafe, and then they decide that they want to go check out the Eiffel Tower. So they head over there. But meanwhile, back at Frank and Joe's hotel, they are resting as well when they get a knock on the door, and it's Fiona Fox and her father. And they've come to ask the Hardy Boys for help, of all things. Apparently, they have recently quit their cat burgling business because Dr. Fox has had some health issues that would make things difficult for him to do this line of work. And instead, they have decided to become security consultants. Because I guess they already had these skills, and so just turn it around and use the other side of things, I guess. And their current clients, the people that they're working for now, don't know anything about their criminal past. But unfortunately, there is a smuggler who's pretty well known in this industry that they're working in. This guy is apparently very big. His name is the Conductor, or he's known as the Conductor, and he knows about them. And he has been blackmailing them, basically saying that if they don't do what he wants, he will expose their past to all their current clients, and then they'll lose all their work or whatever. He hasn't actually told them what it is that he wants them to do, but Fiona is pretty sure. She's like, well, all these art thefts have been happening in Paris. He's probably going to ask us to steal some famous art, right? Fiona says that she remembers how nice the Hardys were to her and her father in New York, and so that's why they want their help, that they can trust them in trying to track down this Conductor guy.
Okay. We have to pause for a second.
Yeah.
Because really, this is crazy. Mm-hmm. Like, so Fiona's story, I'm going to call it a story at this point, is that when she saw Frank and Joe, she was like, I remember how nice you were, so you must be able to help. I'm sorry, are you serious? They were nice to you before they knew that you were a cat burglar. Mm-hmm. And then when they found out that you were a cat burglar, they tried to catch you, to turn you over to the police. Mm-hmm. And so you're like, well, okay, well, I'm not a cat burglar now. So it's fine now, but you tried to steal the Sarcone crown jewels.
Yeah.
We haven't forgotten that, Fiona. Like, just because you're not currently stealing anything doesn't mean that you didn't try to steal things in the past. Oh, and also successfully steal a lot of things too, probably, that we just don't know about.
Right.
So it's not like because you've just decided to quit the cat burglaring business. Yeah. That like suddenly you're absolved of all your former crimes. Frank and Joe, I just don't understand this, because don't they still have a responsibility to turn her over to the police?
You would think.
French police, or I don't know, what's the international one? The GDIF or something?
Oh, that's like, Italy, I think.
That's Italy. What am I thinking of?
Oh,
Interpol.
Yeah, Interpol.
I know I couldn't think of the name. Interpol. Like, come on.
This also doesn't at all explain their behavior in the lobby this morning, because why would you run away from them if you needed their help?
Well, and like, if your whole story is like, well, I'm no longer doing that, and so therefore I'm absolved of all former guilt, why are you so freaked out?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I guess you could say, okay, well, I am freaked out, but I still decided to come to the Hardy Boys for help or whatever. But like, as a former criminal, you're not going to be a little bit more savvy about this whole situation? Like, I don't know, give them a phone call instead of showing up to their hotel room, send them a note, arrange a meeting in public or something. Like, it's just incredibly risky to just show up and expect these boys not to call the police on you. Like, I don't understand. As a criminal, I don't understand how you'd be so dumb. You could be so stupid, even a former criminal, because surely you still have those skills. Apparently you do still have those skills. Like, what's going on? Anyway.
She really expects them to believe that she ran away from them this morning and hasn't spent the last few hours concocting this story to explain her behavior. Mm-hmm. As if. Oh my gosh. Yeah, what she should have been doing is packing her bags and getting out of that hotel. Yes! Like, if you see the Hardy Boys, you don't just sit there for hours trying to come up with this weird story to lie to them. Pack your stuff and get out of there so that they don't come looking for you.
We have to talk about this later, too, with the information that we get later about this, because I have some way more funny things to say.
Yes. Oh, man.
Anyway.
But so, yes, the Hardys agree to assist them, provided that they can turn the conductor over to the police once we catch them. The Foxes agree to this, and Fiona says that she has to leave and rush away now because she is due to be at the top of the Eiffel Tower to get these instructions from this conductor in a few minutes here. And so Frank and Joe are like, oh, a stakeout. Great, let's do it. And so they decide that they're going to go stake out the place ahead of time before Fiona gets there so they can kind of watch and see who is acting suspicious around the Eiffel Tower. Who do we need to pay attention to? So we head to the Eiffel Tower. So flashback to Nancy and Bess. They have just arrived at the Eiffel Tower with Jules. And Jules says, you know what? I've seen it 100 times and somebody's got to stay with the car anyway because there's nowhere to park. So why don't you guys just go ahead and I'll stay in the car. So Bess and George get out of the car. We go up in the elevator.
Bess and Nancy.
Did I say Bess and George?
Yeah. George is not here.
George is not involved at all. Not even mentioned.
Yeah. Which is interesting. That's because I feel like usually they would say George is off doing this other thing, which is why she couldn't come. Or George had this conflict, so she couldn't come. But literally, we don't even mention her. I don't know that I like that.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
Because, well, listen, if I'm being honest, I don't love George in a mystery. You know, typically she tends to just bring the vibes down. But
Nancy did that herself this time. So
that's true. But also, it's our trio. We need to know where she is, what she's doing, you know? Just leaving her out feels a little bit, cold.
It does.
You know? Yeah.
And I get that we're continuing the storyline from Crime for Christmas where George was not in that one, but still at least mention her. But so Nancy and Bess get out of the car. They start heading up to the Eiffel Tower, but not before Nancy makes a horrible, mean joke to Bess about her fear of heights and tells everyone that she's going to go back home to River Heights and tell everyone that Bess was too chicken to see the Eiffel Tower. if she doesn't do this. So Bess
my
agrees
gosh.
to go out of embarrassment. But we go up. It's very nice. And there's like a little pastry shop, like when you go up in the Eiffel Tower, there's multiple elevators, right? So you go up in one to the first level, and then there's like a pastry shop there, and then you like transfer to a different elevator to keep going up. It's not like just one continuous elevator, if that makes sense. So they're kind of like halfway up the Eiffel Tower at this point, I guess. And Nancy sees somebody on this like platform area who looks like Jules and is even kind of dressed like Jules. But it can't be, right? Because he just said that he was going to stay in the car this whole time. So why would he have come up here anyway with them? Bro, where's the car? Like, you're going to get us towed. But anyway, Frank and Joe have just arrived, or actually they've been here on this stakeout pretty much while we've been doing this. And Fiona is up here on this platform area as well, kind of standing by the railing. And Frank and Joe are just kind of watching out from a distance to see who approaches her. But at this point, Bess literally just backs into Joe on accident, bumps into him, which distracts him. And as soon as he turns back around to look, Frank and Fiona are standing there talking, and Fiona is already holding the envelope. So clearly whoever this was like saw that Joe was distracted and used that as an opportunity to slip the envelope to her. And nobody saw this person.
Not even Fiona herself.
Yeah, because Fiona was like turned talking to Frank or whatever. So very clever. So Joe, Nancy, and Bess all go over there to help, and Fiona opens up the envelope. And inside are security plans for a nearby museum, the Baroncourt Museum. Apparently, the founder of this museum recently passed away and left the museum a priceless Picasso that he owned. So this must be the thing that the conductor is going to want the Foxes to steal for him.
So Frank and Joe clue Nancy and Bess into this whole situation with the Foxes about, them being blackmailed by the conductor or whatever. And Nancy takes a look at the note that was included in this manila envelope. It's basically a promise of payment if the Foxes do steal the Picasso for him. But Nancy picks up on a clue in the wording. One of the words on the note is spelled with a British spelling. It's like, your labors will be rewarded, and labor is spelled with a U. So this could mean that the writer of the note is British. Fiona excuses herself at this point because she has to go back to her father to kind of update him on what has happened. And once she's gone, Nancy brings up the fact that the Foxes are British. So could this whole thing be a ruse? Could Fiona have written this note and had someone bump into her, right?
Yes.
Yes. And did they just ask the Hardys for help because they planned to steal the Picasso themselves the whole time and they wanted a cover in case they ended up getting caught?
Yes. Sorry.
So Joe immediately gets pretty defensive. It seems like his old crush on Fiona is back with a vengeance. But Frank is like, oh, that could make sense. Possibly. Nancy also brings up that she wonders if the person who delivered this envelope was actually Jules because of what she saw at the hotel. Remember that guy giving that a same looking manila envelope to Jules and then her thinking that she saw Jules up on this observation deck? And now Bess gets defensive for Jules because it seems like she's crushing on Jules now. Anyway, they all go back down from the tower, and Nancy invites the Hardys to come back to the theater with them because it seems like their cases might be in some way connected. They agree, and they all get back into the car with Jules. And the Hardys and Nancy kind of subtly ask him if he did indeed spend the whole time in the car while they were up in the tower, and he says yes, he was reading his book the whole time. But Nancy happened to look at his book before they went up on the tower, and she looks at it again and sees that the bookmark is in the exact same place in the book where it was before. So he was not reading his book in the car.
No.
Because he hasn't even made it through a single page. So, okay. Back at the theater, Nancy introduces Frank and Joe to Johnny, and it's clear now, too, that Johnny has a thing for Nancy, which Nancy notices, and Nancy also notices Frank noticing that Johnny has a thing for her. So it's this very interesting, complicated moment where Nancy is, like, embarrassed by the attention, but also kind of likes the attention because Johnny's a rock star, and so it's just kind of like, oh, a rock star likes me kind of thing, but then she's also like, oh, but Frank sees that, and now Frank's gonna get weird about it, and I don't want Frank to be weird about about it. But also, by the way, I'm still thinking about Ned, and where's Ned right now?
It's a post-Bluebeard world. I mean,
jeez. So it's time for rehearsal, though. But just as Johnny is like about to leave, a very irate Ruby Bloom knocks on the door. She's very angry that her band has been put as the opening act for Sunday. She's offended that Johnny is using her to open the show. He says, listen, Ruby, the whole tour is full of massive bands. Someone has to open the show. And she storms off. Then we head to rehearsal. Johnny takes the stage and everyone is awestruck because he's such an amazing performer. But then when he steps up to the microphone to sing, a spark of electricity like comes from his mic stand and to like, I guess, Johnny's lip. Like it literally like jolts him on the lip and he gets electrocuted so badly that he falls back onto the stage and like passes out. He ends up coming to and he's like okay enough, I guess, to get helped back to his dressing room, but he refuses medical attention, which you're a famous rock star. Like, why would you not like take advantage of what I'm sure is concierge medical care?
Right.
Like, you just got electrocuted, dude. Anyway. Frank and Joe go to talk to the sound guy while Nancy talks to Alan about Johnny's electric guitar. I guess her theory is that the electric guitar shorted out the mic, which caused the electrocution. I don't understand anything about the physics of this situation, so I don't understand if this is possible or not possible or how ridiculous this is or whatever. But I guess because the electric guitar is plugged in to electricity and the mic is also plugged into electricity, something could happen. I don't know.
Need a physics degree to read this book.
So Frank and Joe go track to the sound guy, and they discover that a very frayed sound cable has been used to hook up the microphone. And the sound guy says that normally he would have noticed this during setup and replaced the cable, but after their show in Frankfurt, Roger apparently got so like particular about the placement of their mics that Roger asked if he could just do the mic setup himself moving forward. And so he has been doing that setup ever since. So Roger is the one who set all this stuff up. Okay, we're back to Roger again. So Frank and Joe are going to go track down Roger because it's probably Roger who did this. But they find him along with everyone else in Johnny's dressing room. Roger and Johnny are having a huge fight, and Johnny is accusing Roger of sabotaging his mic, which he probably did, and causing the electrocution. And Roger is accusing Johnny of basically embezzling funds from this tour to build his own recording studio in Saint-Tropez. So they almost come to blows over this. They're so worked up, but the Hardy Boys stop them. But Johnny is like so offended by this implication that he could be embezzling that he says, fine, like if you think I'm mismanaging funds, I'll take you to Brent, who's the tour manager and also Johnny's manager. I'll take you to Brent right now and he'll show you the books that everything is fine. So they all march downstairs together to talk to Brent, and they end up catching him in the hallway, like outside of his office, and tell him that, oh, we want to look at the books. And he gets a little bit like flustered at this and is like, oh, I'll need time to prepare the books, like give you a report or whatever on how everything's looking. I can't just like show them to you. And Roger is like, no way, dude. You mean you want time to like cook the books? I am not letting you do that. We're going to go look at the books right now. And so they start walking down the hallway to his office. Frank, though, starts to get kind of like a whiff of like smoke on the air, but he kind of disregards it, thinking, oh, it must be nothing. But then when they go and open the door, Brent's office is fully on fire. So they all panic. A nearby security guard is able to extinguish the fire, and the fire department arrives and everything is okay. But once they're able to get back into the office, they see that it's been trashed, obviously because of the fire partially, right? There are papers everywhere covered in water and everything's covered in extinguisher foam. The computer screen is like The computer screen is like cracked and on its side. And Brent is furious about this. And then he like goes over to check on these discs, which I guess have the financial records on them, which is what he was going to show Johnny and Roger. But the discs are missing. Roger now obviously thinks that this fire was intentional and that Johnny must have removed these discs and or started this fire. And they almost get into another fight again about this, but a security guard diffuses it and they all kind of head their separate ways back to their hotels to get some sleep for the night. Back at their hotel, Frank and Joe walk into the lobby and end up meeting someone that their dad told them to look out for at this conference. His name is, and I apologize for the French that I am about to butcher, his name is Francois Guillaume?
William?
Oh, is it William?
No, it's not actually pronounced that way. I think that this is just the French spelling of the name.
Guillaume or Guillaume. I think Guillaume. Guillaume?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's that. He's the commissaire at the oh my god. Sûreté? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
National help. He's a cop, basically. He knows of Fenton and of Frank and Joe, and so he agrees to, chat with them because they ask him to. They ask him about the conductor, and Commissaire Guillaume,
Francois,
the commissaire knows of the conductor.
Francois or the commissaire. I can't even touch that last name. That is too much.
He knows of the conductor, and he is not surprised when Frank and Joe say that they think that he's in Paris right now. But he's like, well, how do you know that? Why do you think he's in Paris? But Frank and Joe are vague about it, right? Because they don't want to give away Fiona and her father just yet. But they ask the commissaire if it would be likely for the conductor to blackmail someone, and he says no. The conductor is actually well respected among criminals and is not known to be violent, so it would be really weird to hear that he would be involved in blackmail, because he has a good reputation. And they've never had any other criminals threaten to turn on him or inform on him at all. So after this conversation, the boys head upstairs and are met by Fiona in their own hotel room. Fiona's just in there already, which is so funny to me. And Fiona tells them that she got a call from someone identifying themselves as Bobby Peeler, which they're like, that's the fakest name we've ever heard. But he apparently offered to help her on her latest project, aka stealing from the Baroncourt Museum. And he must be part of the conductor's gang. The weird thing, though, is that he said that if she needed assistance with anything technical, to leave a message at the Pont Neuf Theater by Sunday, the day the tour would depart from the theater. This seems like too big of a coincidence. This seems like to confirm their theory that someone on the tour is the conductor or is working with the conductor.
So the next morning, Frank and Joe explain all of this to Nancy and Bess. This obviously does not look good for Jules, but again, Bess is crushing on him a little bit, so she defends him a little bit. And then Jules appears on a motorbike, and he's like, hey, Bess, I've got this extra helmet if you want to come see the city with me on motorcycle. And Nancy gets a little bit salty with Bess throughout this book for Bess not doing more to help with the investigation.
This peeved me off. This peeved me off so bad because I'm like, one, Nancy, what do you want Bess to do? I'm sorry. What exactly is she going to be helping you with? She's not going to run faster than you chasing after a criminal.
Right.
She's not I guess maybe she could help you question someone, but really, why? And listen, I know that she's just explained that Jules is possibly this art smuggler or whatever to Bess, and then Bess does go off with Jules right after this, which is a little bit But let me tell you something, okay? I don't give a flying F if this man is an international art smuggler. Actually, if he is an international art smuggler, I think I would be more likely to go out with him on a motorcycle touring around Paris. Are you kidding me? He's also attractive. So obviously that really adds to the whole appeal thing. But I'm invited by an attractive boy to go around Paris on a motorcycle. Are you kidding me? Like, who is saying no to that? What person in their right mind is being like, I guess I'll pass to help my friend who I see every day of my life investigate another one of these insane mysteries that I get pulled along for every freaking week. No, you know what? I'm going to go to cafes, ride on a motorcycle, and go to the Arc de Triomphe with this really attractive, potentially exciting man of mystery.
And it's not like it's not like Nancy is like mad that she and Bess had plans and Bess is ditching her or something like that. It's nothing like that. She's mad that Bess doesn't want to come help crawl on the floor of the theater looking for clues and snooping around. And like, it wasn't even their plan that they would do that. Nancy's just like, what if we did this today? And Bess is like, oh, I was going to get on his motorcycle and to go around with him.
It seems to me at this point, Jules is suspect numero uno.
You would want somebody with him.
You want someone with him so she can keep an eye on what's going on. Nancy should be like, actually, yes, Bess, go with him. Hang out, see if he does anything suspicious and report back. Meanwhile, I will go be doing other things. Like,
exactly. Any other time, this would be Bess. Take one for the team and go be alone with this scary man all day long.
Which she does in so many different files, so many. Nancy's like, well, if you could actually go on a date with him, it would be really great and helpful, Bess. Yeah. But this time, because she just wants to be upset about it, she just chooses to be upset about it instead of thinking, how could this situation benefit me? And Bess. I'm sorry. Yeah. I cannot get. The thing that Nancy, I think, is peeved off about here is that Bess is having a good time, a quote-unquote good time, and she doesn't get to have a good time because she's here for quote-unquote work, which, whatever, Nancy, we know you're not getting paid for this. But, like, it's just baffling to me how you could see your friend having a good time, having boys being interested in her, and not want her to take advantage of a situation like that. Like, not be like, yes, go have fun. I'm so excited for you. How cool that, like, this guy wants to take you around on a motorcycle. Like, just be careful, you know, like, whatever. Like, why? Like, it's not like she's not concerned about Bess being involved with the suspect. It's not like she's worried that this guy is dangerous. Because also, by the way, we've heard from several people at this point that the conductor is actually probably not dangerous.
Right, exactly.
And you know, okay, yes, blackmail, but like, he's probably not going to like attack her. We've been around Jules before. Jules is friends with Alan. He's friends with John. Like, we basically know this man. It seems acceptable for Bess to go on a date with him. And so it's not like she's concerned about her safety. It's just that she doesn't want her to have a good time. What kind of friend are you, Nancy? It's wild. It's truly wild.
Especially after belittling her at the Eiffel Tower like she did. You scaredy pants. I'm going to tell everyone in River Heights that you were too chicken to look at the Eiffel Tower. As if. Come on, Nancy. You're totally right. It is just that she's like jealous that she's not also having a good time. It's like, Nancy, you could be doing all these things. You don't have any. I mean, you have to be at the performance tonight, but that's not until this evening.
Ray Cardi, let's go hang out.
Right.
Ring, ring, Johnny Crockett. Take me around Paris.
And in fact, it's not even that she's so eager to go investigate. She just wants to get back to the rehearsal to watch Johnny. That's what Nancy wants to do. Because even when they're like, oh, we're going to the Eiffel Tower, and Jules is like, oh, yeah, Bess, let's go. And we can like go to this other tourist spot afterwards. And Nancy's like, no, but like rehearsal starts in 45 minutes. So we should probably just get back to the theater now. Because what if we miss Johnny rehearsing? And like, we have to see him play. And Jules is like, you will have plenty of chances to see him rehearse. It's okay. Yeah. And Nancy's so adamant that they get back right away. They have to get back to the mystery. It's like, girl, you're not even like looking for clues that much.
I do think part of it is Nancy's like workaholicness, right? She's like, this is the job that I've been hired for. So if I don't look like I'm taking it seriously, then I'm going to get a bad rap.
Of course.
But I think also it's like Nancy is salty that she's not like the main character. She's not getting her main character opportunities. Yes. And Bess is getting main character opportunities.
Yep.
Like, unreal.
So anyway, so he comes up on the motorbike, asks Bess to join him, and then Nancy like gives permission. And it's like, I guess if you have to go, you can go, Bess. And so they go off together.
Right.
And at this moment, though, I think they're sitting at like a cafe across the street from the theater where they're rehearsing.
Their regular spot.
Yes, it becomes their regular spot for pretty much the rest of the book. We're here several times a day. But Nancy sees Johnny actually come out of the theater across the street. And he seems to be acting very strangely. He's dressed, he's got like hat and sunglasses on. Clearly, he's trying to be out incognito. But where is he going? Kind of weird. So Nancy, Frank, and Joe all follow him into the subway. He ends up getting into a car, so they like duck into like a separate car and then see him get off like 3 stops later. So they follow him, and then he like ducks down this quiet alley just by himself. And so they follow him, but then they realize that they are not the only people following him right now. There are these other 2 guys that are like pretty big and scary looking, actually. They come out of this like random doorway on a side of the alley and like start getting closer and closer to Johnny. And it's very clear, like from where Nancy, Frank, and Joe are, that these guys are trying to like sneak up on Johnny to hurt him. And so the Hardy Boys like run up after these guys and try to like tackle them from behind.
I think they have like a chain or something. Like they have like a weapon.
Yeah. And they're like going after him. So unfortunately, this fight does not end up going super well for Frank because they take this chain and are about to like whip it over them, like onto him. It's very scary, but Nancy ends up like running up behind these guys and like kicking them in the back of the knees so that they fall over, and they end up like basically giving up as soon as they get hit. They're like, oh, I gotta run away now.
I think that's Nancy's like signature move. She does that several times where she says, she delivers a swift kick to the back of the knees. I think that's her move.
Clearly it's effective. I'm here for it. I like it. But so these guys run away, but then it seems like Johnny has also disappeared at this moment. So they run like all the way through the alley to the other end of the alley, and they get to this little street, and it opens up into this little square area. And then just as they get into this like open square area, they see Johnny go up to a car, and then a hand reach out of the car, grab Johnny, and then pull him in and drive away. So was he just kidnapped? That was weird, right?
Yeah.
And then they decide that they're not going to call the police because they're not sure if this was actually a kidnapping,
right,
or if whatever, who knows. So they decide that they will just wait and see whether or not he shows up at rehearsal, which is going to start in half an hour anyway. And then if he doesn't show up for that, then they will call the police. So they head back to their favorite cafe to discuss the case a little bit more. And they kind of talk about how the pranks have all been escalating. From the nettles to the guitar electrocution thing to the fire. It does seem like maybe there's 2 different saboteurs, right? One whose pranks are a little bit more cruel, but mostly harmless. And then one person who seems to actually be trying to harm Johnny. Or... third theory, possibly, it could be that Johnny is staging all this himself to try to like distract from the fact that he is doing the embezzling himself. Alrighty. So Bess and Jules return at this moment, and Nancy is still annoyed with her for rushing off with Jules, but then Bess runs off again because she needs to clean up and get dressed nicely because I guess her hair's all windblown from the motorcycle trip or whatever. So Nancy does not get the chance to tell her about that situation with Johnny just yet. But then the same car that took Johnny away just pulls up, and Johnny gets out and comes into the theater. What?
So not kidnapped, I guess.
Yeah, so he's totally fine. Came back of his own free will. But then as they start going down this hallway towards the stage door to go like watch the rehearsal starting, a couple of people shove them into a dark dressing room and lock the door.
The heck?
So Nancy tries to like pick the lock in the dark, but Joe's like, no, we don't have time for that. And he just busts the door down. And of course, by the time they make their way out, whoever did this is gone. So they head over to the stage area now to watch Johnny's rehearsal, and a security guard asks them what happened and why they were locked in this room. So they tell him, and he says, oh, things have been getting crazy around here. And he actually tells us about another incident that happened this morning where someone super glued Johnny's dressing room door shut.
Okay, listen. That one is funny.
Yeah.
That one's a good prank.
That's a legitimate prank. Like, nobody gets hurt. Nobody's trying to harm anyone.
Also, he wasn't even in there at the time. So it's literally fine. No bad effects from that. Just funny.
That is really funny. So, yeah, obviously it wasn't like an actual issue, but still annoying for the security guard that they're talking to. But Johnny is wrapping up a conversation now, and Frank and Joe want to go talk to him about what happened this morning in the alleyway. But Nancy remembers, oh, super glue. Where have I seen super glue today? Roger's dressing room. He had a big old bottle of super glue. So she wants to interrogate him about this. But Frank and Joe get to speak to Johnny at this point, and they ask him, hey, what was that? Were you kidnapped, or like what happened? And he says, I have a really good idea for a music video, and it's like such a good idea I can't tell anybody about it, otherwise everyone will steal my idea. But I was scouting locations for this video. But then I saw those two guys who were following me, and so I ran off and I met up with Brent, the manager guy, because Brent was going to pick me up anyway. And so that's what they saw, was just Brent picking him up. So why was he like yanked into the car, though? That's weird.
They said when they saw this happen that it just kind of could have been like two friends like kind of horsing around.
Sure.
So maybe it was just something like that. I don't know.
A lot of coincidences, though. I don't know. But this alley, though, that they were in, it's really, really secluded. So unless these two mysterious guys knew that he was going to be there, why were they just like hanging out in this alley? Yeah. Were they just waiting for anybody to walk by to mug? Or did they know that Johnny was supposed to be here for some reason? Whatever. Meanwhile, Nancy's able to track down Roger, and she like fakes an issue with her shoe, and she's like, hey, my shoe's broken. Do you have any glue that I can maybe use to put my heel back on? And Roger says that he almost has some super glue.
Or no. Like, sorry. He almost says, yeah.
I can't read. Oh my gosh. So Roger starts to say that he had some, but then he remembers that he actually left it at the theater in London where their last performance was, so he doesn't have any with him anymore. Sure. Okay. A likely Roger. Story. Yeah.
Time out. So did you ever watch Sister Sister?
Yes.
With Tia and Tamara?
Uh-huh.
And you remember the character of Roger?
Yeah.
He is all I could picture when I was reading this book.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
And whenever he would do things like this, in my head, I kept being like, go home, Roger. No one wants you here, Roger.
This is him. I don't like this Roger, so. Oh my gosh. So on her way back upstairs at the theater, though, Nancy stops by the business office to talk to Brent a little bit more. And she asks if he was ever able to find those discs that went missing from yesterday. And he says no, but it's not important because those discs were only copies. So it's fine. His office in LA has the originals, so they are going to send him some replacements. So not a big deal, I guess. But Nancy remembers he seemed really upset yesterday. So maybe he was just upset about the fire, not the discs themselves, or maybe he's lying. Who knows? But then she goes back to the stage level where she sees Frank, Joe, and Johnny all talking. This is great.
This is when it happens.
This is so great. And as they're all standing there talking, she looks up, and from up in the rafters, someone has thrown two balloons, each filled with a different liquid. And when these balloons fall and hit the floor, they combine to create chlorine gas. And so now the room is full of chlorine gas.
What? Yeah. So everyone has to evacuate. And Frank and Joe open up some big doors or whatever so that everything gets aired out and it's fine. And while everyone is gone, Frank and Joe actually go upstairs from where the balloons were tossed from. And it's this hallway where there is dressing rooms. And one of the doors is ajar. It's Ruby Bloom's. And they look inside and they see everything that you would need to make chlorine gas. So it's bleach and some, I don't know, other cleaning agent or whatever. And red balloons. And a funnel. So Ruby did the balloons, right? right?
Right.
They're like, they're even like, is this too convenient? Like, could someone have like planted this to frame Ruby? Or is it Ruby just like really being so stupid and cocky that she thinks that no one could catch her when the evidence is clearly right here? Whatever. So Joe and Frank tell Nancy about this, but they're like, we've been spending a lot of time on your mystery, Nancy. We actually came here for a conference. We're going to go do that for a little bit. Catch you later. So they head back to the Louvre, or they head to the Louvre for their conference. When they're there, they run into Fiona again. I guess Fiona is also attending this conference.
Yeah, she's a professional now,
security
right?
consultant. It's really funny too because the commissaire is also there, and he like sees her. He's like, "Oh yeah, I thought she was so accomplished for like such a young woman or whatever." It was very refreshing to see you young people. And anyway, so she tells them that she got another message from the conductor. It was like a note with a list of dates and times and all of the heists that like she and her father had performed. So this was really like unnerving to her. She was like, yeah, I guess the conductor really does know, everything about us. I can't. But when Frank and Joe are like, oh, can we see the note? She was like, oh no, I destroyed it on a fire. Which is like, okay, I understand that like you can't just have that laying around and like you don't want other people to also see that information if it really did exist. But how convenient, Fiona. How convenient. Meanwhile, Nancy and Bess have gone out to lunch with Alan and Johnny. This is actually like a really great sightseeing moment. They're like taking a break because everyone was so stressed out because of the chlorine gas balloons, I guess. And on the walk back from lunch, Alan and Bess are holding hands. We got to talk about this. Yeah. Was it the thing to just hold hands with people who you're not like romantically involved with? Like,
but Alan's trying to get Bess back.
Right, but like, would you hold hands with a guy walking down the street? Your ex walking down the street? No. Like, your ex.
This is weird.
It's weird. It's weird because Bess is like not into Alan. I mean, maybe she's a little bit flirty. Bess is like a natural flirt, sure. But like, I think you would draw a line somewhere. Yeah. And I think that line is holding hands walking down the street.
She puts up with a lot from Alan in this. Alan is like coming on a little too strong. Right. And especially with his like weirdness about Jules. When he gets jealous of Jules, it's very obvious. Yeah.
It's like possessive. It's, yeah. It's like you broke up with her.
Yeah.
So...
You don't
step
get
off
to, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so also because of like these romantic vibes or whatever that I guess Alan and Bess are putting off, Johnny tries to make a move on Nancy. He like, I think tries to like put his arm around her or something, but she like is like, no, like Johnny, I'm just here for the case. And he kind of like teases her about this. It's kind of gross and really annoying. Anyway, they head to the Montmartre, thank you. Funicular. Hey, I love a funicular. Yes. To write it down. It's just like this very famous spot in Paris. But while they are waiting for the funicular car to get to the top again so they can board, they are attacked by two men with like bandanas covering their faces. These men shout at Johnny, "Okay, Crockett, where are the discs?" And Johnny's like, get lost, right? But in the ensuing fight, Johnny ends up getting pushed over like the funicular railing to fall like directly in the path of the approaching car.
This is so ridiculous.
This is really ridiculous.
This whole scene.
So the men like flee, they like run away, but not before Nancy gets a really good swipe in and like manages to scratch one of them on the face. Go Nancy. But the funicular car like approaches and basically runs over Johnny. But he's like able to stay like flat enough, I guess, like under the track.
No, Johnny died. There's no way you come out of this alive. What?
He doesn't get hit by it, and he's like able to like climb out from underneath the car. He's like scraped up, really, but he's fine.
No. How?
But the conductor of the car is like, whoa, I don't know what just happened, but like, stay there, dude. Like, I'm calling the cops, you know? But Johnny is like, no, like, we can't stick around for the cops. Like, he doesn't want like bad press, bad publicity, I guess. And so he like takes off running. And so Nancy, Bess, and Alan have to just run after him. They don't really have a choice. And so they end up just running away and then getting a taxi to their hotel. And on the way, Nancy asks, hey, did you know what those guys were talking about? Like, they said, give us the tapes. And he was like, or the discs. Mm-hmm. And Johnny says, like, oh, they must have meant my demo tapes. They must have wanted my demo tapes, I guess, trying to, like, leak them or, like, figure out, like, what his new music is going to be. Nancy's like, I don't think those were super fans, Johnny. I think maybe they wanted the financial discs that the financial records were on. And he's like, oh. She's like, why would they ask you for those, Johnny? And he says, oh, well, it must be because I actually have a key to the box where the discs were kept. And since it didn't look broken into, then the discs must have been taken out by someone beforehand who had a key, right? But it wasn't me.
He's really helping himself here.
Okay, Johnny. Wow. So whatever. Later that evening, Nancy, Bess, Frank, Joe, and Jules head to a club that Johnny and Alan have invited them to. This is hilarious. It's like in the basement of like an old monastery. And like all of like the people, like the staff who work there are like dressed as monks.
Jules is so proud of this place too. He's like, Nancy, I can't wait to take you to this place. It's like so historical.
Which also, like, where in Paris? What kind of building in Paris used to be a monastery and in the basement is a club? It's not like, anyway, like, it's not like out in the French countryside. This is not some like random monastery in the French country. This is in Paris. But the fact they're all dressed like monks, it kills me. It kills me. Anyway,
I'm going to show you real
what a
Paris,
fun time.
Nancy.
So, yeah, anyway, they get there. It's fun. Nancy agrees to have a slow dance with Jules. And while they're slow dancing, she asks him why he lied about not being on the deck of the Eiffel Tower the other day. And why he gave that manila envelope to a friend of theirs, or kind of friend, Fiona, right? He tells Nancy, oh, yeah, sorry about that. I was just following Johnny's instructions. Wait. Roll back. But he says his story is that a member of the crew brought him this envelope. So this must have been that exchange that Nancy saw outside of her hotel room. That must have been a member of the crew. That also means that it was a member of the crew who stuck the note in her bag, by the way. Anyway, we should talk about that later. But the manila envelope had a sticky note on it from Johnny giving Jules instructions of like what to do, how to do this handoff. But he says, I guess really the note could have been left by anybody. It may not have been Johnny. Okay, so even when Nancy explains to him like, oh, this is probably blackmail, he's like, oh yeah, I thought that maybe it was something like that. You just kind of learn in this business not to ask questions. What? Okay. You were fine with this? Fine blackmailing a lady. Sure. Great. So anyway, Ruby then comes over to Nancy. She has like this really mean look on her face, and she and Roger were just talking, and he actually follows Ruby over, and she tells Nancy that she actually remembered Alan's story of like basically how he broke into the biz and how he got famous, and how it featured his ex-girlfriend Bess and a teen sleuth named Nancy Drew.
This is what made me think that the Files book must have been a rock-themed one if it was supposedly about Alan breaking into the business. But
well, I think at the end of that book, this is again from my vague rememberings and from what this book said about it, I think it was that they had that drama, and I think Alan was a musician, but he wasn't like a famous musician. Okay. He just had a band. Gotcha. But then like at the end of that book, he like decided that he was gonna like go try to like break into the biz. And so that's why he broke up with Bess, because he was gonna go like travel or something, I think, and like wasn't gonna be around.
Which book was this?
I can't remember. Anyway. So I don't think it's one book. I think that he was in multiple books.
Oh.
And so it's possible that we read a book where he was just mentioned from a previous book as well. And so we remember him, but we don't know the whole story. I think
That's
that
probably
might
what
also
it
be the
is.
case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh my God.
Anyway, so Ruby has remembered this story, and obviously this means Nancy's cover is probably blown, right? But Nancy claps back, saying that she knows Ruby is the one who threw the balloons. She can actually like see a bleach stain on Ruby's jeans from like the ingredients that she put into the balloons, which is hilarious. And she tells Ruby that like, you better just quit your sabotage of Johnny. And Roger seems kind of sheepish at this too, so obviously we know he's involved as well with the whole nettle situation and the super glue. But then Nancy is like distracted. She like sees over their shoulder 2 men leaving the club who look like the men who attacked them on the funicular, and one of them has a scratch on his cheek. Nancy's like, I know that scratch. I made that scratch. And so she grabs Frank and Joe, and they run out of the club after them. But this is when Frank almost gets run over by the motorcycle. The guys get away. Anyway, it seems for sure now that both Roger and Ruby are the ones responsible for the sabotage against Johnny. But again, we still don't know who the conductor is. We don't know about like the whole Fiona business. And so Nancy promises to help the Hardys with that. But Nancy is still kind of wondering about this embezzling thing, the tour fund situation, because the thing with the discs was too weird, and the guys asking Johnny for the discs, it was really weird. So she takes the Hardy Boys to a nearby cafe for some quiet so they can kind of like discuss all of the details of this case. Frank thinks that Johnny is the most likely suspect for being the conductor. But Nancy is like, you don't actually have any proof of that. We don't have any proof that Johnny is the conductor. And then Frank accuses Nancy of letting her personal feelings for Johnny get in the way of the investigation. And Nancy is pretty peeved by this because, of course, she doesn't actually have feelings for Johnny. She doesn't really like Johnny that much. She is a little bit starstruck by Johnny, but she's not really interested in him. And she thinks, but she doesn't say this to Frank, she thinks that the only reason why Frank has said this is because he's just jealous of Johnny's interest in her. So she storms off. She leaves. It's a fight, full-on fight. And she goes back to her hotel, where she calls Ned, by the way. She's like, ring, ring, Ned, I miss you.
The only time we miss him is in a fight with Frank.
Which is like, at this point in time, I kind of get this. I kind of understand why Nancy calls Ned in this situation. And honestly, this moment kind of makes me understand, I think, the Nancy-Ned dynamic a little bit more, and a little bit more about all of you Ned lovers out there. Because if I were in Paris or just like constantly jet-setting around and I had to deal with all these big personalities of like famous people, rich people, annoying other teen sleuth people, aka Frank, and everybody's being weird, like I would want to be comforted, you know?
Yeah.
Like I would want to go back to the familiar. I just want to go home. I don't want to deal with this mess. And she calls Ned because he's comforting to her, because he is feels like home to her, which I'm like, okay, that's sweet. That's nice. I get that. It's just that sometimes he's a wet blanket and annoying and not great. But this is not one of those times.
Yeah. It does feel like in this, she only thinks about Ned when she's had some sort of conflict with, when either Johnny's weird to her about his romantic interests and she's not putting up with it, or, oh, Frank's not doing what I want him to do, so I'm going to go pout to Ned.
So the solution is polyamory. It's just... Anyway, okay, so she calls Ned, but she doesn't actually tell him about the Frank Johnny drama either. He's just like, oh, how's Paris? And she's like, it's great. You know? So they don't actually talk about any of this. I just want to be clear. And then Bess comes into the room and Nancy hangs up on Ned. And she tells Nancy all about her evening. She says she walked along the Seine with Alan and they went to see Notre Dame in the moonlight. And then they stopped by this cafe and had this French onion soup with French bread. And how that was so great. And she's like, Nancy, I think I'm in love. But she says, but not with Alan or with Jules. I am in love with Paris. And if that is not the hashtag most relatable thing I have ever heard in my life, I don't know what is.
I need a companion book that's just Bess's point of view on this trip and just everything that she gets to do and experience and eat during this. This sounds great.
That sounds so good. I'm like, I want to go to Paris and eat vegetarian French onion soup because French onion soup is very often not vegetarian, and I got a really hard time finding good French onion soup. Anyway, have French onion soup and fresh bread at a cafe in Paris and go see Notre Dame in the moonlight. Like, it sounds remarkable, so great.
Right?
Oh, anyway, Frank and Joe get back to their hotel room and they get a message from Fiona. They meet up with her, and her father and Fiona tell them that the conductor is demanding that the Foxes agree to his request to steal this Picasso or whatever by 3:00 tomorrow. And they are supposed to deliver a note to someone named Bobby Peeler, right? That guy that called Fiona, theoretically, at the theater, at the Pont Neuf Theater. And the show, actually, like the big show, the rock show, the concert tour show is going to start at like that time. And so Frank thinks that the conductor is probably banking on the crowds so that they can kind of get lost in it, right? And not be caught. But Frank still wants to try to set a trap to catch this guy.
So the next morning, Bess again goes off with Jules, which Nancy again is not happy about, but she finally accepts it, I think, this time. So after Bess leaves, Nancy gets a phone call from Joe, and he tells Nancy that, Frank apologized. He feels bad. You should be friends with us again, please.
No. Because he didn't apologize to Nancy. He didn't apologize to her. He just tells Joe that he's sorry about the situation.
It's like, that's not enough.
No.
Nancy took it wrong. Okay.
If there's anything that gets on my nerves, like in real life, it's a bad apology or a non-apology. I can't stand it. I think that's rooted in some deep trauma for me.
It felt uncharacteristic of Frank.
Yes. Take accountability, my guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
But he's really sorry, and Joe wants them all to get together to plan how they're going to trap the conductor. So she agrees, and we go back to our favorite cafe to talk about it. When they get to the cafe, they start making their plans, but Johnny interrupts them. Actually, he comes up, and he says that he got a message from someone that he is supposed to go to the base of a column at the Bastille. He's supposed to do this immediately, or things are going to get worse for him. Like the pranks are going to increase or something. Not sure what they want him to And he's like, well, it seems like it's probably a trap, right? But he also doesn't feel like he really has a choice in the matter.
Wrong.
So, right.
Lots of choices. Call the police. Lots of choices. Don't go. Anyway.
Gosh. Okay. So he suggests, what if you, Nancy, Frank, and Joe all go there ahead of time, because they may be watching for me to arrive with somebody, but I don't think they'll be waiting to see if somebody arrives before me, right? Great logic. So he asks Nancy, Frank, and Joe to all get there first, and then he will arrive, and then they will be there to kind of stake out and see who it is that's looking for Johnny, right? So they agree, they get a taxi, they go straight there to kind of start staking out or whatever, but there's a lot of traffic, and Nancy and the Hardys end up losing Johnny for a little bit in all the crowds. And then they realize, once they kind of get their bearings again, that Johnny has disappeared into a door in a column.
I've never been to this place before. I didn't go there when I went to Paris, so I have no idea what the setup is. I think earlier in the book that Jules had driven them past it, and he kind of describes how the Bastille is not still standing, right? It's not there anymore, but this is the place where the Bastille was, and so there's a monument there, and I think it's just a monument. I don't think you can actually go inside of it. I think there's just these columns, and so I guess there's a door. I don't know.
And they're kind of I guess towers on the inside where there's a staircase inside, right? So they follow him into this column area, and they see this stairway that I guess this column is very, very tall, and they hear some arguing from somewhere else inside of this area, but they can't actually see any other people. But they hear arguing, they hear Johnny's voice, and then they hear a splash, and then Johnny starts yelling for help, and then it just goes silent. So they race down the stairs, and then the tunnel is like filled with water at this area that they get to. And Joe actually sees Johnny under the water. So he throws his shoes off, jumps in, pulls him out. Johnny is like almost drowned, but he is okay. They do get him breathing again, and he talks to them and he tells them that 2 guys brought him down here, demanded that he hand over the disc to them, and then when he refused, because obviously he didn't have the disc really, they just shoved him in the water and then left. And I guess he hit his head or something, and that's why he couldn't swim. But then Nancy realizes, oh, we're in the canal right now.
Yeah.
This tunnel that we're in, the bad guys must have had like a boat or something waiting in the canal, and then that must be how they got away. So they all go back to the hotel because Joe and Johnny really need to dry off. They're freezing. But then they all agree to meet back up at the cafe. Great. So we're back at the cafe, and Nancy is pretty sure that Brent, the manager guy, must be the one sending these 2 goons after Johnny for the discs. She remembers how upset he was to lose the discs originally, and she thinks that he must be assuming that Johnny's the one that stole them because Johnny's the only other person that would have had the key to the box where they were kept. Nancy doesn't think that Johnny actually does have the disc, because if he did have the disc and found evidence of embezzling, why wouldn't he have exposed Brent already? And why would he still have him as his manager? And if he did have the disc but didn't find anything, why would he keep the disc,
I need to talk about this later because I have a theory. Anyway, continue.
So they're, just kind of mulling over this at their lunch or whatever. And then Roger stops by and he says, oh, me and Ruby are so sorry, and we promise that we'll stop right away. We talked about it. We realized that the planks are getting out of hand, and we didn't even know that chlorine gas could actually injure somebody. So this isn't our fault. Okay.
Oh my God.
Sure you didn't. But then he weirdly knocks a spoon off the table on accident. So he leans down, picks it up, and gives them their spoon back, and then he just leaves. So they start talking a little bit more about the conductor after he leaves. And Nancy's like, it's really weird that this high profile, super secretive, super well known guy, the smuggler guy, would go to such lengths to deliver this envelope at the Eiffel Tower. Isn't there somewhere in Paris that could be a little bit more low profile than the Eiffel Tower? And Frank goes, I've only ever heard of the conductor from Fiona, which is not true because the commissary told us about him, but whatever. So we do know that he's actually a real guy in Paris or whatever. But just as they're discussing this, though, Kevin, who is the security guard that we talked to a little bit earlier in the story, he seems very cocky to me. I don't like him. Mm-hmm. But he shows up and he interrupts them as well. And he just wants to come over to thank them for rescuing Johnny. And then he's like, oh, did somebody drop a pencil? And he's like, no, I carry a pen. Why are you asking? And he just oh, I saw this pencil on the ground. Here you go. Here's your pencil back. And then he leaves. And Nancy's like, well, that was weird. So they decide that they are going to leave. They're going to go somewhere else to get some more lunch. And then they're going to go back to the theater just before 3:00 so that they have enough time to set up, trap the conductor. But then Nancy leans under the table to grab her purse so that they can leave. And she sees that another manila envelope has been shoved into her purse. And so she opens it and there are discs inside. In fact, a whole stack of discs. These must be the missing financial records.
So there are actually 6 discs in total. 3 of them are labeled 1, 2, and 3, and the other are labeled A, B, and C. And so Frank suggests that maybe these are different copies of the same thing. So 1 is one copy, and A is the other copy, and 2 is one copy, and B is the other copy. You get it. So maybe they could be the copies of the financial records, one copy that you would want someone to see, that you would show someone, and another copy that is basically hiding your embezzlement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nancy realizes too that the only people who could have like slipped this envelope into her purse without her noticing would have had to have been either Roger or Kevin, because she would have noticed the manila envelope in her purse when she put it under the table, like when they got there. And Roger and Kevin were the only two people who conveniently found something under the table and leaned under the table to get it. So, but why would either of them try to sneak these discs to Nancy and not just give them to her outright? Like, why would either, if they thought they found them or they thought that it proved something, like, why would they need to, like, give it to Nancy sneakily? Why couldn't they just tell her? Anyway, they probably won't know more about this until they're able to get to a computer to look at the discs, which they won't have time to do until after they trap the conductor.
Also, they need to find a computer because it's 1990.
Right. It's 1990. They return to this topic of the conductor, and Nancy asks, if the conductor is really someone on this tour, then how exactly is he smuggling the art? Because they would have these large, really fragile canvases, and if they were just in some box somewhere, then a customs officer probably would notice and catch them. So Frank has an idea. He's like, what if they are getting smuggled in instrument cases? Because those are padded, they could fit in there potentially, and a customs officer, because there's probably a ton of instrument cases with a tour, is probably not going to check every single one. So they head back to the theater and they go to the storage room and they see all of these instrument cases and they start frantically looking through them, checking them. And they do see one that looks like it would be large enough to house a painting. It's also a little bit thicker than normal. Like the padding's a little bit thicker in it. They examine it and pop out a panel that is hiding a painting, one of the Picassos, one of the stolen Picassos from the Delatour collection that was just that Frank read about in the newspaper. So they call the commissaire, who comes with some officers and confirms that, yes, this is the genuine Picasso that was stolen. They end up going back to the commissaire's office to talk and explain how they've laid a trap for the conductor. And he offers to help and arranges so that several officers will be nearby in case there is any trouble. They also bring up the discs that they have with the financial records. And what do you know? The commissaire was like, I have a colleague who specializes in fraud. So let's pop over to his office. So they do, and they give him the discs and he takes a look at them. And he says he does need some more time to thoroughly go over them. But at first glance, it certainly looks like someone has been embezzling. There's really no time to discuss this further, though, because it's almost 3 o'clock, so they have to rush back to the theater if they want to be there in time to catch the conductor. They arrive, and it is a madhouse. The theater is packed with, like, fans and concert goers all clamoring to get into the auditorium. But Frank, Joe, and Nancy basically post up near at the front near these like letter boxes. They had actually noticed like earlier in the book that one of the letter boxes is named or has the name under it B. Peeler for Bobby Peeler. So they're pretty sure that this is where Fiona is supposed to leave the note. So they are waiting there. And Fiona shows up and does indeed put the note in the box, but then is called out to by Jules. He's like, hey, Fiona. He apparently knows her. And so she like, oh, it's hey, and then just like rushes off quickly. But Nancy is like, this is really weird. So she goes over to Jules and is like, hey, do you know that girl? And and Jules is like, yeah, that's Fiona. She's just been around the tour occasionally. He's like, actually, I think she knows Kevin. Kevin, the security guard, the guy who we've spoken to just a couple times in passing, the guy who we just saw at the cafe. He says, oh, Kevin's originally from the UK. So he thinks that he and Fiona know each other because they're both British. So Nancy and Frank and Joe continue to wait to see if anybody picks up the note. They do see Johnny approach the letter boxes, which is a little bit concerning for a second, but he ends up he leaves without taking it. So he seems to be cleared from suspicion. But then suddenly, like, the crowd jostles them, causing them to lose sight of the boxes. And then when they look again, the note is gone. So they approach Jules again. And we're like, are you sure that Kevin and Fiona are friends? Because he's like this is kind of crazy, right? And he's like, well, maybe they're not friends, but they did seem like they've worked together before. Fiona had showed up a couple times on the tour, a couple times in London, and then also here. She has stopped by here before in Paris. Excuse me? Excuse me? Jules explains more about who Kevin is. He says Kevin's actually a really popular, really professional security guy, and like tons of people in the music industry try to work with him whenever they have European tours because apparently he knows Europe so well.
So convenient.
Obviously, this is not proof that he is the conductor, but it would be a really convenient cover for a security guy who manages tours, like European tours. He has a really easy way to smuggle goods, knows the area. Anyway, so Bess, who is like standing with Jules, floats the most level-headed plan. Thank you so much for this, Bess. That, you know what, you should just talk to Kevin, try to clear him. If you can't clear him, then just hand him over to the commissaire for them to sort it out. And he's like, yeah, that makes sense. Let's do that. We don't have proof. Let's just go talk to him. Let's try to go talk to him. So they head off to go find him. They end up seeing him in the hallway outside of the dressing rooms. He's just come from the storage rooms. And he has this look on his face that, if it's any indication, he's just realized that the Picasso is missing. Because obviously the commissaire took it, right? So he sees Frank, Nancy, and Joe standing in the hallway. And in that exact moment, he sees them looking at his face. And he's looking at them looking at his face. He's like, oh, I'm caught. And he takes off running. So they end up on this crazy chase through the theater. They end up going onto the catwalk over the stage, which is like, I don't know if you've ever been on a catwalk before, but that's terrifying. Even at one point, like Kevin, he's not even on the catwalk itself. He's like walking on a pole. He's like holding onto like some wires and walking on like a light pole. Oh, so scary. But so they're like chasing him all the way through up here. Nancy ends up slipping in the chase and like dangling over the stage, like off of the catwalk. Frank ends up rescuing her, but Kevin does, unfortunately, get away.
I don't know why, unless he was planning to like do something up in the catwalk that they needed to stop him, like he was going to hurt Johnny or something on stage. Why not just wait at the bottom of the ladder? Because presumably there's only one or two ways up into the catwalk.
You would think.
And if he got up one way and was planning to like run across the stage and come down the other side and get away that way, just go stand at the other ladder. You don't need to like apprehend him on the catwalk. You could just wait till he comes down.
Well, now I'm like, how did he get down? Because the whole thing was like, they go up on the catwalk, they chase him to like the end of the catwalk, and that's when he like starts walking on that pole to try to get further away from them. But I'm like, but then after Nancy slips, and so Frank rescues her, and then when they like get back up onto the catwalk, he's gone.
Right.
So I'm like, where did he go?
I just assumed that they were distracted pulling Nancy up, and so that's when he slipped out, I guess.
Yeah, but like where did he slip out? Because he would have had to go past, if it's one ladder, he would have had to go back past Frank, unless he's climbing down the wall, or there's another ladder on the other side.
I guess a second ladder?
Which I guess is possible, but doesn't seem likely. I don't know. I guess I don't know everything about theater design, but typically there's one
ladder.
Catwalk access. Yeah.
Or just like you go stand at this ladder and Joe go stand at the other ladder, and then you've got your bases covered. Like,
yeah.
I don't get it. Anyway,
yeah, whatever. Do you want to take this last chapter?
Oh, sure. So he does. Kevin ends up getting away, but not too far, because Joe is waiting for him backstage and manages to tackle him, and then the police come and arrest him. The commissaire shows up and tells us that he has actually also arrested Brent, and his two friends are thugs who've been following us, because it turns out, yes, Brent was the guy that sent the thugs after him or whatever, after Johnny. And Brent apparently confessed to the embezzlement, just like right away. Yep, it was me, and I will plead guilty. No problem. Great.
Cool.
So the police cart Kevin away, and as they are doing so, he asks, like, hey, just for my own peace of mind, what gave me away? What did I do to get caught? And Frank says, it was the blackmail. You shouldn't have tried to blackmail the Foxes. You should have just stayed away from that entirely. And Kevin's like really confused. He's like, I didn't blackmail anyone, though.
Oh my God. I'm so annoyed.
It's so obvious. I'm sorry. It's been so obvious since the start of the book. But Frank and Joe finally have it occur to them, oh, wait, maybe Fiona was lying.
Yeah.
Because she was. Obviously, she was in league with Kevin this whole time. He was not blackmailing them at all. This whole blackmail story was just to get Frank and Joe's sympathy and help. So...
Oh, well, actually, I mean, I think it's Fiona wanted to get Kevin out of the way.
Oh,
so
yeah,
she's
true.
being even more diabolical.
True, yeah. There's several layers to it. But yeah, no, absolutely. She was trying to throw him under the bus so that her and her dad could actually get away with the Picassos, right?
Which is honestly, I'm sorry, I'm not a criminal or anything, but it seems super dumb to me as a professional criminal to get rid of your very successful, very covert, very easy to work with fence.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, how else are you getting these Picassos out of Paris? Like...
Yeah, because that seems to be their downfall every time, is that they can pull off the heist, but they can't just like get away with the items.
Yes, which is kind of like a major part of stealing. Like, I don't know. I've seen what is it? Oh gosh, the one with Matthew Balmer. Anyway,
yeah.
I've seen shows about art heists. You have to be able to sell the goods. You got to get the goods out of there.
Yeah, what's it all for?
So why are you getting rid of the guy who's going to do that for you? I don't know. That's crazy. Anyway.
Selfishness, greed, trying to keep it all for herself, I guess, but not thinking it through. Mystery solved, right? But we still have one more Picasso that's missing, because remember the newspaper article said that 2 were already stolen, and we've only recovered that one. And so Nancy realizes that, okay, we're thinking back to the letter in the box, how we missed anybody taking it. She realizes, okay, so it must have been maybe Fiona just took the note herself. So that means Fiona could still be in this theater. And Nancy even realizes, okay, after everything happened, she never saw the outside door ever reopen again. So nobody ever left the theater. So Fiona is still inside the theater. We thought she was long gone a long time ago. So that means that the Picasso must be in the theater as well, right? Mm-hmm. And then Nancy notices a young redheaded boy trying to sneak out the back door with a large folio. And she yells, "Stop right there, Fiona." And Fiona turns to look, and then the police start running after her. So she drops the folio that she's carrying, which obviously the Picasso is inside of it. And the police like run to grab it, and Fiona starts to run out the door. She even hesitates for a second, like, should I try to grab the painting and grab it after all or not? Eventually she does decide it's not worth the risk. So she just runs, and she does end up getting away, but the police are able to recover the Picasso. Another time, Fiona again does not get away with the goods, but at least we've recovered the Picasso. So successful mystery, I guess, for Nancy, Frank, and Joe. But now we have an after party. The band tour, I guess, has rented a boat on the Seine, and they're all at this boat party now. And Nancy's explaining to Bess and Alan that Brent must have been the guy who put the note in her suitcase at the beginning at the airport, or at least that he like hired the guys to put the note in the suitcase, because he must have heard that she was coming to do this investigation, and he was worried that this would lead to the discovery of the embezzlement. The fire in the office, though, that must have been set by Kevin, because he must have stolen the discs himself, and that's how he ended up getting them to Nancy. But he must have wanted to be able to like use Brent as a distraction. That way he can cover up his own operation, because everyone's paying attention to what Brent is doing and not to what Kevin is doing. So he set the fire to cover his own tracks, and he just must not have thought that he would be discovered this way. And he like probably assumed that people would assume that the discs were destroyed in the fire.
Right.
But then, as we know, he slipped the disc to Nancy to try to get her to go after Brent instead of him. But of course, as we know, that didn't work either. So they have one last little party in Paris or whatever, and Johnny picks up his guitar to serenade Nancy, and whatever, she doesn't fall for it, but then the end.
Oh, man. Okay, so here's the thing. Fiona gets away.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still opportunity here. What I need a third book. I need a trilogy, sequel to the sequel, where Joe has complicated feelings for Fiona still. Even now he knows how cold she is.
Yeah.
One where she's not trying to play him because she knows she can't get away with it anymore because he's wise to her tricks now.
Yep.
But where he likes her nonetheless. And where he's going to investigate an art theft in a museum. The commissaire calls him or something. And we called you because of your, your special connection to this case. And they go and they find out it's the Foxes and he's trying to trap Fiona. And I think it should end in her arrest. And I think they need to stare longingly at each other through a police car window.
As she's pulled away. Oh my God.
As she's pulled away.
That'd be
I need
good.
to start writing fan fiction. Is what I need
Please.
to do.
Do we know that they never did a trilogy? Do we know for sure that there's not another one?
I don't know for sure, but when I looked this up, there was only ever mention of like the Paris Connection as being a sequel to Crime for Christmas.
Okay.
So,
darn, that would have been great.
I think if there was a third one, they would have mentioned it, but I don't know. I don't know.
I didn't feel like the Joe pining for Fiona was as strong in this one as Crime for Christmas. There was like a little bit of mention at the start, but then we don't even really get Joe's perspective a lot in this at all.
It's because we get too much other crap going on. Like we do not need to have like all this weird stuff with Johnny. We should have cleared up the sabotage stuff right away so that we can focus on this.
Yeah.
And not. The embezzling even feels like a subplot that we don't need. It felt like minor. Like the whole thing needs to be about the art theft. Like
I agree.
Yeah.
It all felt so, like I said, a lot of it's very obvious, and I'm yelling at the characters. Why do you trust them? You clearly should not trust them. But at the same time, it's still kind of convoluted how the plot works out. It's like, how is it this complicated, but also as simple as it is, It
was very confusing to read. And like several times in the story, I was like, wait. What's happening? Who did this? What's going on exactly? What's the mystery still? And like, especially like after we wrap up the situation with Roger and Ruby, like for sure we know, like at the club, we for sure know that they're the ones doing the sabotage. Nancy is like still confused about stuff, but the way that they talk about it is like weird. Like it's not really clear what it is that they are discussing ever, and it just goes by so fast that it's like, wait, what's the mystery? What's the question? What's going on? What are we fighting about? Well, yeah. So
yeah, there was a few times like that, and especially there's a few times actually where Nancy will start explaining something really complicated, and she's like, it so obviously means this. And I'm like, how is that obvious to you, but Fiona's lies are not obvious to you,
Well, I think the thing is that Fiona's lies were obvious to Nancy at the start, but she just kind of like was like, okay, when Frank and Joe said, no, that can't be it, and just kind of trusted them to know that it wasn't true, even though she was with them in A Crime for Christmas when they met the Foxes for the first time. So she should have known better. I think she's literally the one who caught them in A Crime for Christmas too. She saw them outside,
at the very end.
Yes, outside of the party or whatever, the state function or whatever that they were at. She saw them getting away, and she was like, hey, wait.
Yeah.
So she did the same thing again.
Yeah, when we're at the cafe, she's like, oh, conductor. This whole time we've been thinking that that's a metaphor for a train, but really, metals are conductors too.
Yes,
and if you think about gold and bronze being metals and guitars being metal and electronic, it must be a conductor of electricity, obviously. And Frank and Joe are like, what?
What are you talking about? I think they were like, okay, Nancy.
Sure.
But also, there's the thing about Bobby Peeler, where Nancy and Bess are talking and are like, wait, Bobby is slang for a cop, is British slang for a cop, and Peeler is also slang for a cop or something. I don't know that for sure, but I think that's what they say. And they're like talking about that as though it means something. And I'm like, I don't understand this.
And obviously, B. Peeler must stand for Robert Peeler, right? That's the initial he would use. I'm like, sure, okay.
Yeah, it's wild.
So funny.
Okay, my question is, though, is Johnny actually also helping Brent embezzle?
I was curious about that, yeah.
Because we're like, oh yeah, Brent seemed to admit to the embezzlement really freaking quickly.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't even know what evidence they have against him.
Mm-hmm.
And then like Johnny's whole thing about him having a key to the box where the discs are, and his willingness to let Roger just go talk to Brent. He's like, it's not going to be a problem. Probably because he knows there are 2 copies of the discs already, or because he's already stolen them himself. Like, I know Brent is saying that he sent those thugs to harass Johnny to get the discs, but my thing is like, well, what if that's all like a cover? Like, what if that was not actually what was happening at all? Johnny certainly didn't seem to be very concerned about it at any point in time.
Nope.
So, and then, I don't know, it's just all a little bit too convenient. I don't trust this. I think Johnny must also be helping Brent, and that's the reason why Brent flipped so quickly, so that Johnny could continue to do their whole operation or whatever, and potentially help Brent out later. So, yeah.
Even at the start when Roger and Ruby come to Johnny and are like, hey, could you just tell us where the money is? Because we have barely broken even. He's not concerned. He's just like, you guys are just mad you're not the headliners and you're the opening act.
Well, and also, Johnny has worked with Brent for years. Like, he's his long-term manager. So it's like, it's not just this tour that he started working with this guy. And so if Brent is only just like, it would have to be that Brent only just started embezzling,
right?
That he wasn't embezzling from Johnny previously. Otherwise, I feel like Johnny would know, right?
You would think,
unless it was just so sneaky, and I guess he got bold or something. But it doesn't. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
Yeah,
I guess Johnny does seem a little dumb, so I'll give that to him. Maybe he really is just didn't catch it. So.
What was he doing in the alley? Because I don't buy the music video thing.
That's still the story we have. And the whole thing is that, like, yeah, he left a note for Brent. And so, you know, it's possible that someone else intercepted the note for Brent. And that's how they knew it was there. But I guess Brent is, according to this story, the one who set the thugs all along. So it didn't even, nobody else needed to see the note for the thugs to have been there, you know? So I don't know. The thing that gets me is that one of these quote unquote thugs or whatever isn't he the guy who gave the manila envelope to Jules? Or is that because
I don't know if we know.
Because here's the thing. Brent is the one who left the note for Nancy in her bag. He admitted to that. We learned that at the end of the book. So that was the very first like threatening message we get. It came from Brent because he thought that Nancy was coming. He thought that during her investigation that she might get too close to his whole embezzlement thing. And so he was trying to get her to go away so that nobody would realize what he was up to. And he sent a guy to go do this. Later, we learn that guy is the one, Nancy sees him outside of her hotel giving a manila envelope to Jules, you know, who in turn then gives that manila envelope to Fiona. But so that guy is from the tour because Jules says to Nancy that it was a member of the crew who gave him the note because he thought it was from Johnny.
That's right. So he must just have like 2 random crew members on his
But
payroll.
If it's 2 random crew members who are going around and attacking Johnny, threatening Johnny, how does he not recognize them? How does he not know who they are? And is not like, yeah, that's Dave. Like, Dave, what's up?
I don't remember if it was in this context, but I feel like they said something about how there's so many crew members and like, when they go to different cities, they're like, because each band has their own kind of crew as well, so it could be like Ruby's crew member or something. And then I think when they move cities, sometimes like some people will not come with them, and so they'll just hire new people or something. So. Maybe. I mean, maybe.
And maybe, I don't know. Maybe they're not members of the crew. Maybe they're different. But it just, I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, the one thing I think we don't really ever talk about again is the electrocution.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, presumably it was Roger, right, who did it, because Roger's the one who set up the microphones. But like, was Roger trying to kill him? Was Roger trying to kill Johnny? Because like, I'm sorry, you think it's like, what about electrocution is like a funny prank?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, even if you are really mad at him, and even if you do kind of want to see him like embarrassed or even maybe a little bit in pain, electrocution?
That's not the way to do it.
I don't think that's going to give you your jollies. You know what I mean? Like, so that part I'm still a little bit about.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about that, you know?
Well, and the chlorine gas too. It's like,
right, because it's like if okay, maybe like you electrocuted him, you're like, oh well, that's too far. Like I should not have done that. Let's roll back now. But then they continue. The super glue happens after that. The chlorine gas balloon happens after that.
And the chlorine gas could have affected everyone in that building, not just Johnny. Who knows who they could have accidentally dropped it on instead of him, you know?
Right. Yeah. Well, presumably Ruby saw that he was down at the bottom of the stairs. But he was also talking with Frank and Joe.
Yeah,
at the time.
Easily could have hit one of them instead.
So
yeah.
Even if it hadn't have, and also, I'm sorry, the whole concept of tossing a balloon down a stairwell is a bananas idea on how to like sabotage or prank someone, because you don't know where that balloon is gonna go.
Yeah.
Like, it could go to the left, to the right. Like, it could splat on the second step and fly back in your face.
Right.
Like, you don't know what's going to happen. Like, someone could get a face full of bleach. Like,
doesn't she say something after, like, I didn't know it could blind him? You knew how to make it and you didn't know what it would do?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. These people are crazy. Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. So the story's a little convoluted.
A wild ride.
I will say the thing that I definitely enjoyed the most about this whole book and this whole story was the discussion of the pastries and the amount of times that they talked about the pastries. I just think that whoever wrote this understood me in such a deep way that I was like, yes, please talk more about the food, please.
Right.
They get to the cafe with Jules. This is like their kind of like first foray into French food or whatever, and they have their lunch or whatever, and the waiter returned with 3 plates of pâté, a basket of sliced French bread, a dish of tiny pickles, and a ceramic mustard jar. And then Bess eyed the pastry cart loaded with cream-filled eclairs and Napoleon's chocolate iced petit fours and tiny fruit tarts with butter-rich crusts. I'm like, take me there. Oh my gosh.
It just makes me want to go to Paris. Again, this is the descriptions of the setting. So good.
I just want to eat good food.
Yeah. Let's go. Can we go to Paris? Let's go right now.
Let's go to Paris. Let's go.
Sounds fun.
Oh my God. That sounds fun, Corey. We should go to Paris. We should go to the Louvre.
Oh my gosh. We need 2 days alone just for the Louvre. But
we can go to Disneyland Paris.
Well, that'd be cute.
But yeah, anyway.
Eat everything.
Eat everything.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. I don't know that I have anything else.
I'm trying to find it, but did you catch the typo? I don't remember what page it was on.
No.
They accidentally called Bess Beth at one point.
Oh, wait. Yes, yeah. I think I did.
I thought that was so funny. Because it was like on the same page as like Bess went over here. And then when Beth sat down, it was like right after they actually said Bess. It was really funny.
Yeah. I think I saw that. Yeah, no, that was crazy. Okay, can we talk about the romantic situation a little bit?
We have to.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Because, I mean, we've talked about it a little bit. I think I'm very of 2 minds about this book. Because on the one hand, we have Bess. And Bess is not interested really in any guy. She's here for the vibes. She's here for the fun. Yep. She's here for Paris. And then there are 2 guys fighting over her attention, which is like, chef's kiss. I love this for you, Bess. Like, I love that you are not like getting obsessed and your heart broken about a guy. You're just there having fun. I love that for you. On the other hand, we have Nancy and the train wreck that is the whole Johnny Frank situation, and I guess Ned by default. Like, how can it be so bad? Because not the whole Johnny like disrespecting her thing and making fun of her, but also simultaneously like, wanting to bang her and all of that. And then not Frank getting jealous of like him and Nancy and not being able to communicate that effectively because he can't tell her feelings, but also because she's taken. Like she's in a committed relationship with Ned, theoretically. Still. Here's the thing. Why can't we have a super mystery that is set post one of these infamous Files breakups? Why can't we have a super mystery that fits right in there, where she and Frank can finally confess their feelings to each other?
Right? That's what we need.
It happens so frequently that, like, I just feel like we had plenty of opportunity
at some point, right?
I'm really happy for Bess. I love this book for Bess. I hate this book for Nancy, and also for Frank. Like, no one outside of Bess is romantically satisfied at the end of this book.
Nobody's having a good time.
Alan's
really
upset. He even says to Nancy at the end of it, he's like, I know that, like, I shouldn't be like pining after Bess like this, because like I'm just gonna go off on this tour and she's gonna go back home and like we're not gonna be able to be together. Like we don't have a chance to be together. So he's like, I know it's not gonna end well, but I just like her so much. Aww. Basically. And then Jules is also, I mean, not a great guy or whatever, but he's he doesn't end up with Bess either because she goes home. Frank, obviously unsatisfied because he's can't be with Nancy. He wants to be with Nancy. Johnny, not satisfied because he wants to be with Nancy, can't be with Nancy. Nancy, not satisfied because I guess she wants to be with Ned right now, but can't be with Ned.
Yep. And then Joe.
Joe
and Fiona.
Not satisfied because Fiona turns out still a criminal. Like,
jeez.
I can't get over the fact that, like, Nancy, the one time she wants Mr. Available, Mr. Ned, Mr. Constantly there, even when you don't want him to be.
Yep.
She can't be because she's across the country. It's so funny to me. So funny.
Ned must have been shocked to see her name pop up on the phone when she called. Like, is this a glitch? Could Nancy really be calling me?
Who died? What's wrong? Like,
are you being kidnapped right now?
Yeah, is this a ransom call? Someone have Nancy's phone. I'll pay whatever you need. I'll call Carson right now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's the Paris connection. Do you have anything else you want to say about it, Kori?
I think that's all I've got for this one. How about you?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Listen, in retrospect, it is a little bit of a train wreck.
Yeah.
Not in a horrible way. Like in a, I guess I like to watch it kind of a way. But like, it's also like, whoa, that's a lot going on over there.
It was too much. It's too much. Yeah.
Too much is exactly what needs to be the tagline for this book. The Paris connection. Too much.
I'm trying to think, like, how could you improve this? And it's not even like, oh, if you just changed this around. No, it's like you need to remove all these people.
50% of the plot. Change what happens in the plot.
Yeah.
I mean, at its core, I like that Fiona is actually there to steal art, and I like that she gets away.
Yeah.
I like those things. So I think if we can just keep those bookends and change everything in the middle, we're good. Outside of the best love triangle / not love triangle and her getting to enjoy Paris.
Yeah.
That can still be happening. That's great.
Everything Bess does is great.
Everything Bess does is great. I'm just saying, the girl knows how to live.
She does.
And she has incredibly cogent, like, clear, like, plans that just come to her. She also probably is psychic. Like, Bess,
definitely.
She's got it together, you know? We should all aspire.
We should all aspire to be Bess. Nancy was so, like, peeved that Bess wasn't helping more, and then Bess is like, oh, I don't know what's going on, do I? Let me just clearly lay out our entire plan for how we're going to solve this thing. And then they do that, and it works. So
Which is
thank you, Bess.
essentially, like, the plan is essentially, just call the cops if you can't figure it out.
True.
They'll do it. Nancy's like, yeah, that's right. I guess the police are there to do their job. What a novel concept.
I love all the adults in this story as well. Like the commissary being like, you know what? I should put this case in the hands of a 16-year-old boy. Great plan.
Wait a second. Is Joe supposed to be 16 in this?
I would have to double check. I think they're supposed to be 17 and 18.
We'll have to look into that because that's a little crazy.
I feel like Frank and Nancy are the same age, and then Joe is 1 year younger.
17, 19?
Maybe.
Frank and Joe are just a year apart, I thought.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Joe's just a year younger.
Yeah.
I feel like...
And Nancy's 18.
We said this in the Drew Crew episode, and I can't even remember what their ages are. I feel like in the original text, they might have been like 16 and 17, and then revised, they changed it to maybe 18, 19, or 17, 18. I can't remember.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
We'll have to check on some Hardy Boys stuff just to confirm exactly what is canon and what's not for their universe. But
yeah. I wonder how we'll do that, Corey.
Anyway. Flashlight score? Or sorry, did you have something else?
No, I don't have anything else. 3.25.
Okay.
3.25, maybe 3.5 for the Paris vibes alone. The Paris vibes alone and the suggestion of art heists. I give it a 3.5. And we do have it's a super mystery. We have some Francie moments. They're not particularly satisfying. The content is there, but it's not, honestly, the story is not that exciting. It's not that, well, it's exciting, but it's not very clear, and it's difficult to read a little bit. But so I just don't love it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to give it a 3. It's just, everything I've already said. It's just not quite there, but that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah. I guess there has to be a least favorite super mystery. And so far, this is probably my least favorite super mystery.
Hey, a 3.5 is a respectable score for a worst super mystery. So
it is. It really is. It really is. It's really not that bad. It's just, yeah.
It's just not as good as the other excellent ones that we've experienced.
Exactly.
So I think that's what it is for me.
After shockwaves, what else can we want?
Exactly, right?
So, yeah. Well. Well.
Oh my gosh.
So excited. Me too. Next up, we will be doing episode 110?
I believe so. Yes.
So we're going to try to do something a little bit special, a little bit different, which we try to do every 5th episode. And I am so excited. This is going to be both your and my very first time reading a Hardy Boys book. Yay! We will be reading number 1, Tower Treasure. And I am so pumped. I have never read one. I have no idea what to expect. I guess we will be able to learn Frank and Joe's actual ages. I don't even know what version of that I have. I'm assuming it's a revised text.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's got to be, I'd imagine.
It's got to be. But yeah, I'm so excited.
Me too. Perfect way to close out our Hardy Boys crossover section. Finally get some answers on Frank and Joe.
I know. See where it all began.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Feels long overdue.
It really does. And I know this is a Nancy Drew podcast, but this was our section on, Hardy Boys crossovers. And so it felt appropriate, especially, they are essentially Nancy Drew characters. So we might as well.
We can be regular Hardy Boys for one day.
One day.
It's all right.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Yeah. So join us next time, Regular Drews, for Tower Treasure.
Yeah. We'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to Regular Nancy Drew. Email us at regularnancydrew@gmail.com.
If you like this episode, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe.
You can also follow us on Instagram at Regular Nancy Drew and Twitter at RegularND.
You can also support us on Patreon. Patrons at the $3 level vote on upcoming episode topics and get exclusive access to our Scoop Sesh series.
And all patrons receive early access to each episode as well as weekly bonus content.
And to all you regular Drews out there, thanks for listening.